Senate will come to order. The senators will please take their seats. Those persons not entitled to the privilege of the floor will please retire to the gallery. The senators and all in attendance will stand and be led in prayer by the Reverend Willie Justice, Holy Trinity Baptist Church, Pungatee in Accomack, Virginia. Everyone present will remain standing and be led in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America by our Senate Page Carter Nabors.
Let us pray. Eternal and all-wise God, our creator and sustainer, we first of all want to say thank you for this day and this moment in history. We thank you because you've been blessed us all to see and be a part of this day, and we don't take it for granted. Today, Almighty God, I want to invite you to be a part of this 2020 General Assembly, realizing that we truly need you. I also want to take time to pray for these men and women of our Commonwealth as they go forth implementing legislation that will guide our great state. I ask now, Father, that you would grant the wisdom, knowledge, and integrity and understanding that is needed to help these lawmakers operate with a sense of compassion, empathy, and integrity for the people they represent. I pray that you would cause unity to abide in the aisles and across the aisles, that the greatest good might manifest for all people. I thank you for all that you have done and will do in advance. In the name of our Father, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good job.
Not yet.
What's this?
The clerk will call the roll. All those present will please record their vote aye. The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 39, noes 0. You have a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
I want to see if you were awake. Senate Journal for Tuesday, January 21st, 2020.
The senator from Augusta, Senator Hanger, moves that the reading of the journal be waived. All in favor of waiving the reading of the journal will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senator desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 35, noes 4.
Ayes 35, noes 4. The reading of the journal is waived. The clerk will report any communication from the House of Delegates. Senior Senator from Fairfax, Senator Sasslaw.
Mr. President, I move that we waive the reading of the communications from the House of Delegates.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the reading of the communication from the House of Delegates be waived? All in favor of waiving the reading will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 33, noes 5.
Ayes 33, noes 5. The reading of the communication from the House of Delegates is waived. The clerk will report any communication from the governor.
We do not have any, sir.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Now comes the time in the morning hour where we have the privilege and the pleasure of welcoming our distinguished guests with us here in the Senate. I would give my daily reminder that the way this will proceed is that a senator will stand up, recognize an individual or group. I will then offer the warm welcome of the Senate, and we will all wait until the end and clap together. And I would like to begin by recognizing the senior senator from Fairfax, Senator Sasslaw.
Mr. President, I rise for introduction.
Thank the Senator. You have the floor.
I'd like to call your attention and ask that you give a warm welcome to very prominent members of the Virginia Council of Muslim Organizations who are here from Northern Virginia tonight and this afternoon, and just a few of them who some have been here before. There's first I want to welcome Mr. Saif Rahman, who's from the Dar al-Hidra Islamic Center in the Falls Church, Bailey's Crossroads, Fairfax County area. The Bob Morrow from the Adams Center in Loudoun. Rafi Ahmed from the Muslim Association of Virginia in Prince William County. And I'm also happy to have here Zafar Azam, who is with the Mustafa Center in Annandale, where I live. And I would ask that you extend a warm welcome from the Senate of Virginia.
I thank the Senator. Would our friends from the Virginia Council of Muslim Organizations in the gallery please rise if you are able? Thank you all so much for joining us here today in the Senate. It's always an honor to have you here in your capital. We are grateful for your moral leadership, for all that you contribute, not just in Northern Virginia, but throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia. Thank you for bringing the community together and for always lifting us up. And we appreciate you all very much. You're welcome back here anytime. And I would ask everybody to please join me in extending the warmest welcome of the Senate to our friends and leaders from the Virginia Council of Muslim Organizations. Call on the Senator from Lynchburg, Senator Peake.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for the purpose of an introduction.
Thank you, Senator. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today we have visiting from my district 3 people with Piedmont Senior Resources. We have Mr. Jordan Miles, Ms. Justine Young, and Ms. Renata Plonsky. And Mr. President, Piedmont Senior Resources Area Agency on Aging is located in Farmville. It's a nonprofit agency that covers the elderly age 60 and older in Planning District 14, which includes the counties of Amelia, Cumberland, Buckingham, Charlotte, Nottoway, Lunenburg, and Prince Edward. The agency serves thousands of seniors every year through its various programs, including home-delivered meals, Congregate Nutrition Program, Virginia Insurance Counseling Assistance Program, a Sitter Homemaker Program, and a Chore Program. They also have money management, nutrition counseling, and care coordination, and many, many other activities. The agency has rolled out the region's first non-emergency medical transportation program for the elderly, which has been very successful and in high demand since it started last December. The agency truly helps the elderly in their times of need. They deliver meals. They take them, people who have fallen and gone, and help them off the floor of the bathroom. A lot of these people have no family there, and Piedmont Senior Resources acts as their family in times of needs. They provide drivers for these folks and provide a critical service in the District 14 area. Piedmont Senior Resources staff are in the homes of the elderly every day, seeking to break that social isolation that the elderly encounter. And I'd ask that you give them the warm welcome of the Senate.
Senator Peake was so eloquent that it did deserve a round of applause. But the way we're going to do this from now on is we'll wait until the very end to do that. I would ask our friends and leaders from Piedmont Senior Resources to please rise in the gallery if you are able. Thank you all so much for being here today. We are very grateful to each of you for all the wonderful things that you do for our seniors. That the Senator from Lynchburg, Senator Peake, said so well about all the things that you have contributed to the life of our Commonwealth and to some of our most special citizens, our seniors. So thank you all for the dignity and the grace that you bring into their lives every single day. You're welcome here anytime, and I would ask everyone to please now join me in extending the warmest welcome of the Senate to our friends and leaders from Piedmont Senior Resources. Senator from Accomack, Senator Lewis.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. Rise for the purpose of an introduction.
Thank you, Senator. You have the floor.
Mr. President, members of the Senate, the pastor who gave the wonderful invocation to us this morning is the Reverend Willie Justice of Holy Trinity Baptist Church in Punkatig, Virginia, in Accomack County. He recently celebrated his 10th pastoral anniversary there. He's also the leader of the Eastern Shore chapter of Virginia Organizing. He's accompanied by his wife, partner, and friend, Priscilla Smith Justice. And so I'd ask the body to give them the warm welcome of the Virginia Senate.
I thank the Senator. Would Reverend and Mrs. Justice please rise to the gallery if you're able? Reverend, thank you so much for that beautiful prayer. Thank you for your moral leadership here in the Commonwealth of Virginia on the Eastern Shore and elsewhere. Also for your military service. You shared earlier that you've served this country, and we're very grateful to you. And Mrs. Justice, thank you for all that you do to make it possible for him to serve, and also in your own right for all that you do for us here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. So I would ask everyone to please join me in extending the warmest welcome of the Senate to Reverend and Mrs. Justice. The senior senator from Chesapeake, Senator Cosgrove.
Good afternoon, Mr. President.
Good afternoon, Senator.
Mr. President, I rise for an introduction.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, today in attendance from the Fraternal Order of Police of Virginia, we have the President, John Ornberger from the Dulles-Loudoun County area, Vice President Harry Twyford from Norfolk, immediate past President Kevin Carroll, now Board of Supervisors member Kevin Carroll, and Tommy Stiles, who's a national trustee from Chesterfield County. Also in attendance are members of the FOP and law enforcement community from across the Commonwealth of Virginia. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, the FOP is made up of over 7,500 sworn law enforcement officers from all across the Commonwealth. And their membership includes law enforcement agencies, state police, sheriff's deputies, Capitol Police, corrections officer, and just to name a few, and a few senators. So, just saying. They are supported by an auxiliary lodge that is comprised of family members and an associate lodge comprised of citizens who work in support of law enforcement. Each and every day, these brave men and women of this organization serve and protect the citizens of Virginia. Now, today is annual rally day at the General Assembly, and this is their 33rd anniversary of Law Enforcement Appreciation Day here in the General Assembly. Now, they're here to offer their opinions both for and against proposed legislation that affects law enforcement in Virginia. They are also hosting their 33rd annual reception tonight at Old City Hall, starting at 5 o'clock. It's always a good time, good food. I hope you all will attend. Certainly, everyone's been invited. Now, Mr. President, I will say there's one unorthodox thing I want to bring forward. You know, a lot of us, when we talk about law enforcement, you know, we talk the talk. But I got to tell you, Mr. President, I walk the walk with my thin blue line boots that I got at NCSL in Nashville. So, Mr. President, I hope you'll offer these folks the warm welcome of the Senate.
I thank the Senator. Would our friends and leaders from the Fraternal Order of Police in the gallery please rise if you are able? Thank you all so much for being here today. Thank you for your advocacy and, most importantly, for your service to our communities in the Commonwealth of Virginia, keeping us all safe. We got a reminder here of how important it is to have law enforcement who are well-trained to keep everyone safe. And so we're grateful for the sacrifices that you all make and that your families make along with you. We appreciate your service and all that you do. I know the senior senator from Chesapeake, Senator Cosgrove, is particularly supportive of all that you do. So thank you for being here. You're welcome back anytime. And I would ask everyone to please join me in extending the warmest welcome of the Senate to our leaders from the Fraternal Order of Police. The senior senator from Virginia Beach, Senator DeStep.
Good afternoon, Mr. President.
Good afternoon, Senator.
I rise for a couple of announcements.
Senator has the floor.
Today we're joined by members of the Virginia Mortgage and Bankers Association. We have with us Dan Fowler, proud grandfather of 11, Brandon Dixon, dad of Hayden, Lola, and Carter, Jim Belote, wine lover, Patrick Steele, Ruby's dad, Alexandria Oleg, laughter lover, and Sarah Dotson, marathon runner and soon-to-be ultra-marathon runner. Mr. President, please welcome these guests with the warmest welcome of the Senate.
Thank the Senator. Would our friends from the Virginia Mortgage and Banking Association please rise in the gallery if you are able? Thank you all so much for joining us here today in the Senate. We are grateful to have your presence and your advocacy. Thank you for the work you do around the Commonwealth of Virginia to create more economic opportunity for all of our communities and all of our families. And so we appreciate you. You are welcome back here anytime. We echo the eloquent words of the senior senator from Virginia Beach. And I would ask everyone to please join me in extending the warmest welcome of the Senate to our leaders and friends from the Virginia Mortgage and Banking Association. The senior senator from Virginia Beach, Senator Deestep.
Mr. President, I rise for a second group of announcements of our visitors.
Senator has the floor.
From the American Academy of Pediatrics, we have Pooh Gajalapi, Sarah Brewington, Dr. Mary Vaughn DeSoto, Xuan Wong, Karen Shoho, Devin Wilkins, Suri Gorney, Erica Tabbitt, Heidi Shoemaker, Dr. Diego Morinetti, Dr. Elizabeth Capallo, and Dr. Natasha Saraman. And Mr. President, please give the warmest welcome to our doctors from the American Academy of Pediatrics.
Thank the senator. Would our friends and leaders from the American Academy of Pediatrics please rise in the gallery if you are able? Thank you all so much for being here today. Thank you for your tremendous service in the community and for your leadership. I know a lot of wonderful schools and hospitals are represented here, and I know that EVMS, the governor's school, is also represented, and the King's Daughters also in Norfolk and Hampton and Winchester and Shenandoah. Thank you all so much for your leadership and for helping us to have healthier young people and healthier families. It really means the world. So we are grateful to you. I would ask everybody to please join me in extending the warmest welcome of the Senate to our leaders from the American Academy of Pediatrics. The senator from Henrico, Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for the purpose of two introductions.
Thank you, Senator. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the Senate. Today in the gallery, we have pharmacists and pharmacy students joining us for Pharmacy Day here at the Capitol. They are representing the Virginia Pharmacists Association, the Virginia Society of Health Systems Pharmacists, and the 4 pharmacy schools in the Commonwealth. These associations and schools represent pharmacists all across Virginia and provide vital health care services every day to Virginians, and we want to recognize their services as accessible, cost-effective, and high quality. Thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the senator. Would our friends and leaders from the Virginia Pharmacists Association please rise in the gallery if you are able? Thank you all so much for being here today, particularly on Pharmacy Day, and we are grateful for your tremendous leadership and echo the eloquent words of the senator from Henrico, Senator Donovan. The work you do is critical in the Commonwealth of Virginia to help us have a healthier population. And as I mentioned to you earlier, my mom is a pharmacist, so I have a special place in my heart for the tremendous work that you all do. And so we're grateful to you. You're welcome back here anytime. And I would ask everybody to please join me in extending the warmest welcome of the Senate to our leaders from the Virginia Pharmacists Association. Senator from Henrico, Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have another introduction. Today I have the pleasure of introducing Brielle Hunt and Amy Whitelaw, who are both with us in the gallery. Brielle and Amy are trial lawyers and constituents of mine. They are with us at the General Assembly today advocating on behalf of the Virginia Trial Lawyers Association for their Justice Day. District 12 is lucky to have Brielle and Amy working on their behalf, and we greatly appreciate all of the work they do to mentor and train the next generation of young trial attorneys. I'll ask you to join me in giving them a warm welcome from the Senate, Mr. President.
I thank the senator. Would our leaders from the Virginia Trial Lawyers Association, Brielle and Amy, please rise in the gallery if you're able. Brielle and Amy, thank you all so much for being here today. Thank you for your tremendous advocacy, both in the legislative process and also in the courtroom. Place is special to so many of us. You have a lot of trial lawyers here, and we're grateful for what you do to bring justice to people and to families all around the Commonwealth of Virginia and all around this country. So we hope you have a wonderful lobby day. We echo the eloquent words of the senator from Henrico, Senator Donovan, and you, of course, are welcome back here anytime. And I would ask everybody to please join me in extending the warmest welcome of the Senate to our leaders from the Virginia Trial Lawyers Association. Senator from Northern Chesapeake, Senator Spruill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Rise for the introduction.
Thank the senator.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. President, I apologize. I apologize, Mr. President.
I'll let Ms. Phillicorn know. She is the speaker. Thank you, Senator. You have the floor.
Mason's fault. Mr. President, we have a group from Cox Communication. Cox Communication is big in the Hampton Roads area, particularly in Chesapeake, where they have done a great job with service, working with the community as far as volunteers and doing things great for the community. Mr. President, would you please welcome our guest from Cox Communication?
I thank the Senator. Would our leaders from Cox Communications, J.D., NECA, and Barrett, please rise in the gallery? Thank you all so much for joining us here today. We are grateful to you for your leadership in the Commonwealth of Virginia and really around the world. You're an international company, and you do such great work in our communities. And thanks for what you do to help get broadband into all of our homes and schools and businesses, and particularly with your Connect to Compete program, where you're helping people at a low cost to get connected. It's really a phenomenal job, and so we appreciate you, all your charitable work throughout Virginia to make us all better. So thank you for what you do. We look forward to you doing even greater things in the future, and I would ask everyone to please join me in extending the warmest welcome of the Senate to our leaders from Cox Communications. The Senator from Portsmouth, Senator Lucas.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. You have the floor.
Mr. President, I rise for the purposes of making an introduction.
You have the floor.
Seated in the gallery today is a group from Brunswick County, and of course they're here to bring us our annual serving of Brunswick stew. And I tried to look behind me, Mr. President, to see exactly who is up there, and I'm thinking that the stew master's there. Oh, yes, I see them now. Okay, so, Mr. President, I would appreciate it very much if you would give the Brunswick Stew crew the very warm welcome of the Senate. But I'd also like to say, Mr. President, for anyone who doesn't wish to have the Brunswick Stew placed on their chamber desk this morning, please have a page to deliver it to the Senate Clerk's office on the 3rd floor of the Capitol. And all that you don't give to the Senate Clerk, please deliver it to the 6th floor over at the Pocahontas building.
I thank the Senator. Would our friends and leaders of the Brunswick Stew crew please rise to the gallery if you are able? Thank you all so much for being here today and every year for bringing us Brunswick Stew and your great hospitality. We are big fans of Brunswick and appreciate all that you do to make the Commonwealth of Virginia a better place. I know also that I believe you're celebrating 300 years this year of Brunswick, 1720. So what a huge milestone, and we appreciate your friendship and your leadership and your stew. So we look forward to eating it later today, and I would ask everyone to please join me in extending the warmest welcome of the Senate to our friends from Brunswick. And Bladen. I would just note our Brunswick crew that Madam Clerk, Susan Shar, Tara, also our Deputy Clerk, and where's Bladen, Finch? They are all from Brunswick. And Melanie. So Brunswick runs this place, just so you know. We appreciate you all very much. Call the Senator from Fairfax City, Senator Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Rise for an introduction.
Thank the Senator. You have the floor.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, I want to recognize a group that stands tall in Virginia. As many of you know, Virginia is the home to the world's finest hardwoods, and we have people that both grow, harvest, and produce that industry. And so we have members of the Virginia Forestry Association and Virginia Loggers Association that are in the gallery today, and I ask that they stand and be recognized.
Thank the Senator. Would our friends from the Virginia Forestry Association and the Virginia Loggers Association in the gallery please rise if you are able? Thank you all so much for being here today. We always appreciate seeing you here in the Capitol and appreciate what you do in such an important industry here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, the number 3 industry all by itself, but number 1 when you put it with agriculture, $91 billion annually to the Commonwealth, and you all are driving that growth. So we appreciate you very much. Please give our thanks to everyone, and I would always welcome you back here to the Capitol. I would ask everyone to please join me in extending the warmest welcome of the Senate to our friends and leaders from the Virginia Forestry and the Virginia Loggers Association. Do any other senators wish to be recognized for purposes of an introduction? Is there any other business to come in the morning hour? Okay. Seeing none, I call on the senior senator from Fairfax, Senator Saslaw.
Mr. President, I would request that we stand in recess for 10 minutes, so make that 12:50.
Thank the Senator. Thank the Senator. Without objection, the Senate will stand in recess temporarily. Senate will come to order. The senators will please take their seats. Those persons not entitled to the privilege of the floor will please retire to the gallery. Sergeant at Arms.
Mr. President, a message from the House.
Please receive it.
The delegate from Alexandria, Delegate Herring.
Mr. President, I have been directed by the Speaker of the House of Delegates to inform the Senate that the House has agreed to hold the special and continuing joint order relating to judicial elections on Monday, January 27, 2020, and request its concurrence.
Thank you, Madam Delegate. Senior Senator from Fairfax, Senator Saslaw.
Mr. President, pursuant to Rule 5 of HJR 99, the scheduling resolution, move that the Senate do now agree to hold special and continuing joint order on Monday, January 27th, 2020, which is next Monday.
Thank the Senator. The question is, pursuant to Rule 5 of HJR 99, the scheduling resolution, shall the Senate now agree to hold the special and continuing joint order on Monday, January 27, 2020? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. The special and continuing joint order will be held on Monday, January 27, 2020. Yes. Senior Senator from Fairfax, Senator Saslaw, will report to the House of Delegates the action of the Senate. The Senate will be at ease. Senate will come to order. The senators will please take their seats. Those persons not entitled to the privilege of the floor will please retire to the gallery. Clerk will call the calendar.
Senate calendar for Wednesday, January 22nd, 2020. Uncontested calendar, Senate bills on third reading.
Senior Senator from Fairfax, Senator Saslaw.
Mr. President, I move that Senate bills on third reading on the uncontested calendar, pages 1 through 4, Senate Bill 156 through 525, be placed on their final passage in a block. And any senator desiring to remove a bill from the block, please do so after the clerk has read the number of the bill.
Thank the senator. The question is, shall the Senate bills on the uncontested calendar, third reading, pages 1 through 4, Senate Bill 156 through Senate Bill 525, be placed upon their final passage in the block, with the understanding that any senator desiring a bill be removed from the block will do so after the clerk has read the number of the bill. All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. The bills are before us in the block. Clerk will read the number of the bills.
Senate Bill 156, Senate Bill 395, Senate Bill 412, Senate Bill 472, Senate Bill 482, Senate Bill 524, Senate Bill 525.
Question is, shall the bills in the block pass? All in favor of passage of the bills will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. The bills in the block pass.
Regular calendar, Senate bills on third reading. Senate Bill 318, a bill relating to release of balloons prohibition.
Oh, we're okay. The junior senator from Virginia Beach, Senator Kiggins.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate pass Senate Bill 318, and I'd like to speak to that motion.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, Senate Bill 318 reduces the number of balloons that can be intentionally released in a 1-hour period from the current law of 49 to 1 intentional release. This bill carries a light fine of $5 per balloon above this release limit paid to the Lifetime Hunting and Fishing Endowment Fund. Caring for our environment should not be a partisan issue. Balloon launches are bad for the environment, and I think we can all agree it can be classified as aerial litter. We don't litter on the ground, so why should we litter in the air? I'd like to specifically point out the effect on the wildlife of Virginia when balloons lose their lift and fall to the ground and into our waterways. The bright colors of balloons can be misinterpreted as food by many marine mammals and can be ingested by endangered sea turtles and many types of fish. More than 30 animal species are known to be impacted by balloons, and those are just the ones we can identify. The Ocean Conservancy's annual International Coastal Cleanup reports that from 2008 to 2016, almost 300,000 balloons were found along U.S. beaches. If we do the math, that's 31,000 balloons per year littering our coasts and waterways. Another hazard of balloon releases is power loss. Some power companies estimate 16 to 20% of annual outages are related to metallic or foil balloons that conduct electricity and become entangled in power lines. Additionally, helium depletion is also a matter of concern. There's a finite amount of this non-renewable element, and its use should be conserved for more important applications, such as for use in sea and space exploration. And I would be remiss as a naval aviator if I did not mention the risk of balloons to rotor blades, tail rotors, and jet engine intakes. With our large military presence in Virginia, we must protect our skies for the sake of our country's safety. However, I appreciate the ceremonial significance of balloon releases, and therefore I'm not asking to outlaw completely the intentional release of balloons, but simply to reduce the number to a symbolic 1, which can be then released as an appropriate gesture at weddings, funerals, graduations, and the like. Mr. President, my bill is especially important to my constituents from the 7th District as it borders the Chesapeake Bay, where we play in the beautiful water of our oceans. We enjoy much wildlife indigenous to the Hampton Roads area, and we benefit from local tourism that our beautiful beaches bring. In summary, I believe that Virginia's current law regarding balloon releases is outdated and needs to be changed to prevent further environmental impact and to provide a penalty for balloon littering violations. Virginia was one of the first states to introduce legislation prohibiting mass balloon releases in 1991, and we can once again be a leader on this important issue, and I thank you for your consideration of this reasonable bill whose time has come.
Thank the senator. For what purpose does the senior senator from Virginia Beach, Senator D. Steph, rise?
Mr. President, will the gentlelady rise for a question?
Will Senator yield?
Yes, I will.
Senator Yields, you have the floor.
Mr. President, I'd like to know what materials of a balloon make it non-biodegradable and non-photodegradable within 5 minutes, if the gentlelady can tell me which material that would make a balloon biodegradable or photodegradable within 5 minutes of contact of the air or water.
Almost all of the materials that the balloons are made of will not be biodegradable. So there are such rare exceptions to this that it's not even worth mentioning.
Further question?
I'm sorry.
If the gentlelady will please yield for a follow-up question.
Will Senator yield for another
Yes, I will.
Senator Yields, you have the floor.
So I was just wondering, the code is rather voluminous, and with that voluminous code, why wouldn't we list, since there's only one or two of these materials, why wouldn't we list that in code and save time and space from what we've shown here in this extremely long 24-line bill?
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am not a fan of over-regulating, so I did not include that in my bill.
Mr. President.
Further question?
If the gentlelady will rise for another question,
Will
will
Senator yield?
Yes, I will.
Senator Yield, you have the floor.
So since Geico Gecko is home to Virginia Beach, what about the balloons released by the Geico Gecko? Would he have to pay for $5 for every balloon released, more than one?
Senator has the floor.
If he was seen doing that, then I would say yes.
Mr. President.
Further question?
Would the gentlelady yield for one more question?
Will Senator yield?
Only one more.
Senator yields for one more. You have the floor.
So what about the Aflac duck? Would the Aflac duck be charged for every balloon released beyond one?
Senator has the floor.
He's an advocate, actually, of this bill because it affects his friends and family.
Thank you, Mr. President.
You're quacking us up. For what purpose does the senator from Alexandria, Senator Eben, rise?
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to see if the gentlewoman from Virginia Beach would rise for a series of questions about this incredible intrusion of the government.
Yes, I will.
Senator Yields, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. The senior senator from Fairfax had inspired me a number of years ago with his blimp that was about 10 feet in length, and I myself had a 10-foot blimp as well. Are you telling me that if a gust of wind should rise and cause our blimps to escape, that we would be criminals?
Senator has the floor.
No, that's not the intent of this bill at all.
Further question?
Yes. I just recently was reminded about something called a gender reveal, which has nothing to do with the gender bills from yesterday. It's when a child or a baby, a fetus, is known to be, when the parents determine it's going to be a male or female baby, they have a party and they, in some cases, release a bunch of pink or blue balloons. Are you telling me that you're against baby showers?
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, no, I am not against baby showers. And as I previously stated, I believe that the symbolic one is enough of a gesture to identify the gender of the child.
Further question?
I would just remind the gentlelady that in the case of Senator Peake with 4 children, you would be prohibiting from celebrating the gender of each child. So with that, I'll just ask the members to oppose the bill.
What purpose does the senior senator from Fairfax, Senator Saslaw, rise?
This should be great.
Would the junior senator from Virginia Beach yield for
Senator yield for a question?
or two?
Yes, Mr. President.
Senator Yield, to the floor.
Listening to the senior senator from Virginia Beach and questions he asked, I was thinking next year, if this bill passes, would you be willing to support 1 balloon a month?
Mr. President, yeah, we could talk off the record later. My goal and my objective is not to outlaw balloons, but we could talk about that later.
Well, another question I would ask, would she support background checks for people who buy balloons?
Senator has the floor.
No, I would oppose background checks.
Thank you.
Thank the senator. For what purpose does the senator from Hanover, Senator McDougal, rise?
Thank you, Mr. President. Would the gentlelady yield for a question?
Will the senator yield? Senator Yields, you have the floor.
Mr. President, after listening to the gentleman from Fairfax, I became very concerned about the government intrusion on balloons, and I decided to read the bill a little closer. And I'd ask the lady, what is the reason that the government is the only people that can release balloons with the lines that saying they are not restricted from a plethora being placed into the atmosphere, but poor citizens of the Commonwealth can only release one?
Which
senator has the floor?
Mr. President, which line are you referencing?
Which lines, Senator, referencing?
Mr. President, I'd point the gentlelady to lines 21 through 22, which has the exemptions for balloons released by agencies of the Commonwealth or agencies of the United States or on their behalf, that they are not limited to one balloon an hour or a month
Mr.
or
President.
registry.
So that applies to the military, the government. For, again, the sake of national security, we may need to do some sort of unmanned aerial reconnaissance or even weather balloons. So there are some definite reasons where the government may be involved.
Further question?
Mr. President, I understand the gentlelady's answer, but I would ask the gentlelady why the language does not so indicate that it says any agency of the Commonwealth. And I know that there are a multitude of the agencies of the Commonwealth that have nothing to do with national security or reconnaissance or protection, and why that individual citizens, particularly ones like my sweet daughter Reagan, who loves to go in to her local Food Lion and find a helium balloon, why she could only be limited to one per hour, because she certainly knows that I will not be stopping twice for her to get a balloon.
Senator has the floor.
President. And I'm sure there's a sign where she gets that balloon that probably says limited to one per child. Probably that's what it says probably in most grocery stores, or if you get one free cookie, one free balloon. So maybe we should revisit that. And as far as this line reference 21 through 24, so it's on behalf of any agency. So the government can act as a representative for that agency, which I don't think is problematic.
Mr. President, I would ask the gentlelady, does her interpretation of that bill, meaning that the members of this body, since we act on behalf of the Commonwealth, can release as many balloons as we would like, so it would be exempt from the one balloon an hour restriction that the rest of the citizens are required?
Mr. President, that's really reading into this bill and really reading in between the lines. I'm going to say no to that.
Further question?
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank the senator. For what purpose is the senator from Russell, Senator Chapin, rise?
I would ask if the gentlelady would rise for a question.
Will Senator yield?
Yes, I will.
Senator Yields, you have the floor.
Mr. President, I'd like to ask the gentlelady from Virginia Beach if her bill seeks to prevent children from becoming flighty and lightweights before they become adults.
Senator has the floor.
Yes, that is absolutely. Oh, that's funny, Mr. President. So I want to remind everyone of the legend of Larry Walters, who took these 45 balloons and tied them to his lawn chair and was able to actually go up to 16,000 feet in the air and travel into LA airspace, and caused quite a commotion in the year 1982. So as far as children becoming flighty and lightweight adults, so yes, this is concerning because these people may do the same type of thing, tying those 49 or 50 plus balloons to lawn chairs, thus launching them into the air and having them become public safety issues.
Further question?
Yes, Mr. President. Would the gentlelady yield for a second
Senator
question?
Yield for another question?
I will.
Senator Yield, you have the floor.
No, if the gentlelady, Mr. President, is simply trying to prevent the balloon that goes around from coming around.
Senator has the floor.
Well, that may be possible because one balloon could actually travel all the way around the Earth. There have been balloons that have traveled from Australia to Antarctica, and depending on where it gets in the jet stream and then the pressure, and we can talk about the Archimedes effect and how high the balloons actually rise with the pressure differentials. So yes, it may what goes around comes around. So we want to prevent those things.
I thank the gentlelady.
Thank the senator. For what purpose does the senior senator from Richmond City, Senator McClellan, rise?
Thank you, Mr. President. Speaking to the bill.
Senator has the floor.
I just want to say on behalf of the bicameral, bipartisan Jennifer Caucus, we support this bill.
Thank the senator. For what purpose does the senator from Roanoke County, Senator Suderline, rise?
Mr. President, I'd like to know if my seatmate will yield for a question.
Will Senator yield?
Yes, Mr. President.
Senator yields. You have the floor.
Worried as I was listening to the description about who this bill was aimed to help, and I think I saw the senator from Fairfax City peek up too when I heard it sounded like this was at the request of the power companies. I want to know who wrote this bill.
The senator has the floor.
Mr. President, this was not at the request of the power companies, but I advocate for all my constituents, including those who may be employed by the power companies.
Well, very good. I've got
further
Mr.
question?
President, will she yield for one more question?
Will the senator yield?
Just one more.
Senator yield. You have the floor.
Mr. President, the ratepayers are very dear to my heart, but there's someone even closer, and that's my little daughter who's only 6 years old, and she's got such small hands, and she helps me campaign, and what we do is we give out these balloons that say Suderline. It's not a very common name, so we try to make it more familiar, and it says Suderline for Senate, and her hands are just so small that occasionally 2 to 3 balloons, which cost me campaign money and makes me unhappy, float away. And I want to know if the Roanoke County Commonwealth Attorney is going to be coming after her.
Mr. President, that should not be a concern because if you read the bill, you would see that it is intentional balloon releases that it applies to, not unintentional balloons, such as for children that have very small hands who are campaigning for their fathers.
I appreciate her concern. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank the senator. For what purpose does the senator from Roanoke City, Senator Edwards, rise?
Mr. President, will the junior senator from Virginia Beach yield for a question?
Will the senator yield?
Yes, Mr. President.
Senator yields. You have the floor.
I'd like to know what effect will your one balloon per hour have on children's birthday parties? They have lots of helium balloons.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, negligible effect because there's many alternatives to releasing balloons. There are banners and candles and confetti and types of things that are maybe we can do rather than littering into the air into unknown space.
Further question? Thank the senator. For what purpose does the senator from Fairfax City, Senator Peterson, rise?
Gentlelady, yield for a question.
Will the senator yield?
President.
Senator yields. You have the floor.
Whether or not concealed carry permit holders have an exception from this law.
Senator has the floor.
President.
Further question. For what purpose does the senator from Franklin County, Senator Stanley, rise?
God bless us.
Will the gentlelady yield for a question?
Yes, Mr. President.
Senator yield. You have the floor.
Why do you hate balloons? They're so much fun. What is it about
Mr.
balloons that you hate so much?
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, just to clarify, I do not hate balloons. I am not in the Anti-Clown Alliance or any of those things. So, big fan of birthday parties, all those. I just think there's some alternative things we need to be considering.
Further question?
No, I think I've run out of helium. I'm good.
Thank the senator. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. For what purpose does the senior senator from Virginia Beach, Senator D. Steph, rise?
Mr. President, one last serious question.
Senator has the floor.
Do we have to rename the song from 99 Luftballons to 1 Luftballon? It doesn't make sense.
Senator has the floor.
No, I don't think that will be necessary. We're not here to change the music industry, just simply to make the environment a cleaner place.
Thank the senator. For what purpose does the senior senator from Chesapeake, Senator Cosgrove, rise?
I would ask that the gentlelady would yield for a question.
Will the senator yield?
Why not?
Senator Yields, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would draw the lady's attention to line 16, where it says, too little I, inflated with a substance that is lighter than air. Give me, or can you tell me where air is defined in the code?
Senator has the floor.
I don't currently define air. I'm under the assumption that most people know what that is, so I didn't feel the need to define it. However, if the senator from Chesapeake would like to do an amendment to add that definition, we could consider that.
I can do that.
Further question?
Mr. President, no, I would just ask that Senator McDougal remind the gentlelady what his sweet daughter said about the last senator that carried this bill.
For a person senator from Hanover, Senator McDougal, right?
Mr. President, I'm still waiting to see if the clerk is going to come take my seatmate away. But, but Mr. President, Reagan, when she was much younger, said, "Don't take my balloons."
And Mr. President, this bill again does not take balloons from children. It simply reduces. There has been talk in other parts of this building of other bills that may be indeed doing that of making balloons illegal. But my bill is very sympathetic and does not take away balloons. Simply limits the number.
Thank you, Senator. For what purpose is Senator from Northern Chesapeake? Senator Spruill, rise.
Move the pending question.
Question is, shall the pending question be ordered? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 20, noes 20.
The pending question is not ordered. Debate can continue. Does anybody else wish to be recognized on Senate Bill 318? Seeing none, the question is, shall Senate Bill 318 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? The clerk, close the roll.
Balloons 25, noes 15.
Ayes 25, noes 15. Senate Bill 318 passes. And briefly, just to explain to our friends in the gallery, what just happened is Senator Kiggins just passed her first bill, and so it's the tradition of the Senate for everyone to applaud after that occurs. So we congratulate the senator on passing her first bill.
Senate Bill 240, a bill relating to firearms removal from persons posing substantial risk penalties.
Senator from Southern Fairfax, Senator Barker.
Mr. President, I move that the bill pass. And speaking to the bill.
Thank you, Senator. You have the floor.
Mr. President, as I'm sure everybody is familiar with by now, this is the Extreme Risk Protection Order bill that we debated a good bit yesterday with various floor substitutes and things like that were out there. This is a bill that I have carried over several years. And I tell you this, the landscape across the country has changed substantially from when I first started presenting this bill. I think there were 3 states that had this type of law when I first put the bill in. Now there are 17 states in the District of Columbia that have this. The Extreme Risk Protection Order bills, based upon studies that have been done and data from various states, shows that they have reduced the deaths in several states, particularly suicides, and also have been used in several situations of threats of mass shootings. They have been upheld by the courts when they've been challenged on constitutional basis. And I think it is certainly would be in our interest to have this type of legislation on the books here and to help people reduce the number of deaths in Virginia from situations where someone is an immediate threat to use a gun. I do want to thank those who have been involved over the last couple of weeks in reviewing this bill and helping it or trying to address issues throughout the process. Although he was not thrilled with everything in the bill, I think that the efforts of this senator from King George do reflect well upon the way this body operates in terms of trying to address issues, and I think did help with changes to the bill that have made it even better than I think it was starting off. I certainly also respect the efforts of the junior senator from Richmond, who worked on this bill and picked up on some of the things that the senator from King George was addressing and was instrumental in the process of helping us get this legislation forward, along with the senator from Prince William, who was worked with him as well. And Mr. President, you certainly had a role in this process too. I thank you very much for that role of helping us get to a point where we could have the best bill possible. And I do want to make a sincere thank you to my pro bono attorney. It's good he hasn't been charging me by the hour on moving forward on this bill, but certainly the senator from Eastern Fairfax was helpful in many ways in this process. And in reality, although some people initially were concerned about whether, from their perspective, this bill was being watered down in ways which would not make it as effective, based upon experience in a couple of states, and particularly in Florida, the process that we have set up is actually resulting as having very good results in other states. The vast majority of people voluntarily turn over their weapons when they are addressed by the law enforcement officers who come to their home or wherever they meet up with them in this situation. And there's been actually very little use of having guns out in public of people who have been served with these orders. So in those situations, and so it's not been a major problem in compliance. And in many instances, I think it's also better for the whole process, and actually does address significantly for most of these people the issues related to due process and to search warrants and those types of things. And so with that, I request hope it's the pleasure of the body to approve this bill and renew my motion to support it. Thank you.
Thank the senator. For what purpose is the senator from Spotsylvania? Senator Reeves.
Thank you, Mr. President. Speaking of the bill.
Thanks, Senator. You have the floor.
Members of the body, yesterday I listened to quite a bit of testimony from some very articulate attorneys, and having really, truly, probably the last law enforcement officers actually had to execute some of these things that we put into place. I didn't sleep well last night. I didn't sleep well because I know what we're about to pass is going to cause a lot of problems, as my colleague from King George has testified to. Knowing some of the people that I work with and knowing their proclivity to want to arrest a bad guy and get into homes and do some of the things that law enforcement officers do every day, I think there is a real good propensity for good intentions to go in a bad direction. And nowhere in here and I've read this thing multiple times, do we really get to the root of what we're talking about. We all want the same thing. We don't want good guns in the hands of bad people or people that are unstable that will do harm to other people. And we haven't talked at all about the mental health aspect. And my very first Signal 13, and for those of you who don't know what that is, a Signal 13 is where an officer needs immediate assistance. That means that I am in dire need of assistance or I'm going to die. And my very first Signal 13, in my years of law enforcement, I had 3 of them. 2 of them were gunshots near and close to my head, and the other one was issuing a TDO on an individual, as we used to call 1096, which is crazy. I will tell you that process was very, very important. And the reason is the guy that we were committing at that time was mentally unstable. He's standing in the middle of a street. He's holding an infant, and he has a butter knife in his hand. Now, I couldn't arrest a guy for standing in the street with his child, holding a butter knife that he wasn't using in an adverse way or threatening his child, but it was in the middle of August, it was hot, and I knew the family was down getting the commitment order on this individual. I finally got him the sidewalk. I got him to chunk the butter knife away and give the child to a family member that was still in the residence. I got the order from my sergeant to go 1081 to arrest the individual, that they had the paperwork, the proper paperwork in custody to bring him down to the magistrate's office, where a mental health, a clinician provider would figure out if this guy was either on his meds, off his meds, what his situation is. Well, as things would have it, the rest of the people that he ran around with that were in the house didn't realize what was happening. To their buddy, they came out, about 8 of them. They proceeded to stomp me to death. The guy was taken down to the magistrate's office. They committed him to Snowden. 8 days later, I get another call to the residence, and the guy was off his meds again, but there were no firearms. There was nobody else in the house because that original order was issued. So I knew I could go to the house without weapons. We've got to find a better way, and I commend the senator from Fairfax and all the hard work that you've done, but we're not there yet, and I think there's some movement in this thing to where we can make this thing work. Make it work with the mental health aspect, because without that aspect, we're just going to take firearms, and I will tell you, there are people out there that are not going to allow that to happen. You're going to put officers at risk. You're also going to give an officer exigent circumstances to go kick in doors when there's not really one that exists. Now, I'm not an attorney. I haven't been to law school, but I'm smart enough to read the bill and the code and the implications of that. So I would tell you, we're going to pass this bill today, but I would seriously urge you all to consider some of the things that are floating around, those wise counsels that are in here who have prosecuted and executed on the law and defended it as well. Because I couldn't sleep last night with what we were about to do. Now, I'm going to throw up a no today, but I'm willing to say to my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, you can get there, but you need to bring some more people along with you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank the senator. For what purpose is the senator from Arlington? Senator Favola rise. Senator has the floor.
Thank you. This bill may not be perfect, but I would submit to my colleagues that this bill is a step forward and does provide us with a much-needed tool. In fact, President Trump's School Safety Commission endorsed the concept of extreme risk protective orders. There must be a balance in our society between the unabridged Second Amendment right to always carry a firearm anywhere, under any condition, for any reason, with the need to protect others who also have a right to feel safe, who also have a right to be able to send their children to school without worrying every day whether their children will come home, who also have a right to allow a family member who may have a mental illness to actually give up a firearm. I mean, there are many issues in here that have to be balanced, but that's what we need to do as lawmakers. I think it's particularly important to note that more than half of the suicides in Virginia involved firearms. And that was 916 suicides just this last year. There are situations where a firearm should be relinquished. There is a process in this bill. 2 law enforcement officers or a Commonwealth attorney may petition a judge or a magistrate. There must be a finding. None of our processes are perfect. I don't know one that is. But I think we've done a real bipartisan effort to try to make this as solid and defensible as we can while respecting everybody's rights. It is really time. It is absolutely time. All of us know what happened at Parkland. All of us know what we've been reading in the last few days, and some have been experiencing. Please, give us the tools to make our community safer. I respectfully ask for your vote on this bill. Thank you.
Thank the senator. For what purpose is the senator from Lynchburg? Senator Peake rise.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. President. I have a question for the patron, if he'll yield.
Will Senator yield for a question?
Yes, I'd be happy to
Senator
yield.
Yields, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Senator from Fairfax. I'm looking at lines 588 through 591. It's 19.2-152.16. It's the false statement to law enforcement officers. And then in there, and it's not a trick question or anything, and so if you want to pull it up, in the course of conducting an investigation, it says it's a Class 1 misdemeanor. My question is, does that cover the person who initiates the petition, who calls the Commonwealth attorney or calls a police officer? So if someone makes a call and says so-and-so is a danger, if they are determined to be lying, does this provision apply to them?
Senator, the floor.
Mr. President and the senator from Lynchburg, the answer is yes. I mean, that's what this is targeted at, so that we can make sure that there is a potential punishment that is there for false representation of the facts. And I would say that I think that it's important to have that in there. There's also civil remedies that can be used in certain cases to try to have someone be able to receive compensation for expenses they incurred, such as going to court on something when there was a false representation that was made. And I think one of the things that we have done is we have, with this bill, unlike it exists in many states, we have made it very narrow as to who can go to court to be able to address this issue. We allow 2 law enforcement officers, which is different from where we started out on this bill this year, with 1 law enforcement officer. Those they have to get after consulting with someone from the Commonwealth Attorney's Office. So it's not just solely on their own volition to do that, or to have the Commonwealth Attorney file that suit. And we do not allow individuals to go into court to seek this type of order there.
Senator, further question?
Thank you. That's further, if I can make a statement.
Senator has the floor.
My only question for asking that, because it said in the course of conducting the investigation, means that it kind of has already started. I just wanted to clarify that if anyone goes to a person of authority, makes a false claim, they will be punished under this statute.
And the answer, Mr. President, is yes.
Thank you.
Great. For what purposes does senior senator from Chesterfield, Senator Chase, rise?
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to speak against this bill.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, I believe it is egregious to think that stripping law-abiding citizens of their constitutional freedoms and rights would protect us from the evil that surrounds us each and every day. This law emboldens the very criminals that we ourselves are trying to protect ourselves from. Each legislator that votes in favor of this bill, in my opinion, is a traitor to Virginia, a traitor to the Second Amendment, and a traitor to our constitutional freedoms. The very thought that any attorney or police officer can simply ask for an extreme risk order is simply dangerous and is a slap in the face of every law-abiding citizen. Let's just step back and think about this. For 14 days, a law-abiding citizen can be stripped of their constitutional right with no due process. This is simply egregious and contemptuous. How can 1 or 2 people decide someone's constitutional freedoms? Would it be okay not to have free speech for 14 days? Would it be okay for a government to house soldiers in your house for 14 days? Would it be okay for a rape victim to not be able to defend herself for 14 days because her gun was confiscated because her abuser used the red flag to claim she was mentally incompetent? This bill is rendering people helpless, Mr. President. Legislators who vote in favor of this bill are deemed traitors of the Commonwealth, and their vote will be posted on my page for all Virginians to see, keeping all those in the General Assembly accountable to we, the people. The Second Amendment is non-negotiable. Thank you, Mr. President.
For what purpose does Senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain, rise?
Mr. President, I rise to speak.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, members of the Senate, I'm not going to invoke any high-flying rhetoric or make any accusations about the motives. I think we're all about trying to keep Virginia safer. However, we have some very different views about how to do that. I do, as you know, believe very strongly that the Second Amendment is something that we ought to protect, and that this very clearly undermines the Second Amendment. We've talked a great deal about the merits of this bill over the past few days. A couple of things we haven't talked about, though, are actual experiences with red flag laws. Sometimes it's good not to be on the leading edge of a movement. Every once in a while, one of us comes up with a brilliant idea. And these brilliant ideas, sometimes they work, but sometimes they don't. And it's sometimes a better thing to wait and let some other states try it first and see how they work. And in this instance, we do have some experience, and that experience has been very uneven. And the experience from states even like California. California adopted a red flag bill in the first 2 years. There were 0 times it was invoked, 0 times. I'm not out about window dressing. And, I know that there are members of this body who feel very strongly that their constituents demanded that they do something about guns. And we've heard a lot about that. And we've seen a lot of bills that have been introduced. They're going to do something about guns, but they're not going to make Virginians safer. And I think that this falls into that category. We've got a bill here that's going to put people in conflict with law enforcement. And you look at another state in which red flag laws were adopted. Look at Maryland. Maryland has a red flag law, and one incident in which it was actually invoked was 5:17 a.m. on November 5th of 2018. And on that day, police served a red flag protective order on the home of Gary Willis in Anne Arundel County, Maryland. And according to the Baltimore Sun, Mr. Willis answered the door with a gun in hand. And this put police in a dangerous confrontation with somebody. And rather than protecting Mr. Willis, rather than keeping him from hurting himself or anybody else, he wound up being shot by police in that confrontation. I think one comment that I also heard on the floor today invoked as one of the reasons that we're adopting this piece of legislation and maybe some of the other legislation was and I tried to write this down, what we've experienced over the past few days. I don't know what other people experienced over the past few days, but I tell you what I experienced. I experienced an awful lot of well-intentioned citizens, well-behaved, coming to the Capitol to petition their government on an issue that they felt very strongly about. They came like they come every year. I heard many who sought to vilify these citizens from across Virginia who came to advocate for their Second Amendment rights. Many who attempted to spin up the rhetoric about the danger that these Virginians from Rockingham County, from Fairfax County, from Franklin County, from all over the Commonwealth, we're going to bring to Richmond by coming to advocate for their Second Amendment rights. And of course, thank God, none of those fears, none of that rhetoric actually panned out. What I think we've experienced over the past few days is not an example of why we need to adopt red flag legislation or one gun a month or any of these other bills, but I think what we experienced over the past few days is a good example of why we need to slow down, back up, and actually do something that's going to make Virginians safer rather than rearrange the deck chairs, rather than simply giving the impression that we're doing something. We're doing something, but what we're doing is rash, and it's going to undermine not only the Second Amendment rights, but the right to due process of Virginians. And I would hope that members would take a serious, long look at this bill, and I know we've been talking about it for days, and maybe back up and be willing to reconsider your position and think about why we should move forward with this bill at this time. Thank you.
Thank the Senator. For what purpose does Senator from Hanover, Senator McDougal, rise?
Thank you, Mr. President. Rise to speak briefly to the bill.
Thanks, Senator. You have the floor.
Mr. President, I'm not going to cover any ground that others have spoken about, but the thing that concerns me, and I would hope concerns you, and should concern all Virginians, is that now we are instituting a search warrant process for your castle, for your home, apartment, condo, trailer, wherever you might live in Virginia, based off a civil process. There's no original criminal charge, no allegation of criminal wrongdoing, no even allegation of being involved with somebody that's engaged in criminal activity. And this civil process can now lead to a search warrant of where you live. Mr. President, having been a prosecutor and having done defense work, that concerns me. And it should concern each of you that we now are taking a civil process and coming in to do what is a criminal act of searching your house. Mr. President, I would ask that this body reflect on that and not vote to move this bill forward. And Mr. President, I would ask that Virginians reflect on us having a civil process and then going to search your home is something that the Constitution did not contemplate and is one that we should not contemplate as members of this body.
Thank the Senator. For what purpose does Senator from Eastern Fairfax, Senator Serville, rise?
Speaking to the bill.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm still scratching my head over here trying to figure out how I'm a traitor to the Commonwealth, but or the country for that matter, or our Constitution. From my point of view, this bill, especially as amended, we probably made 15 or 20 amendments to this bill to improve the due process protections as the other side pointed out the problems in it. And I'm starting to wonder whether there's any changes we could make that would make anybody happy. From my perspective, this bill provides greater due process to Virginians than they get from removing a gun from their possession, than they get for being kicked out of their house, or being deprived of their liberty. Just think about that for a second. We are giving Virginians greater protections than the government gives them when they're removed from their home or they're locked up in jail. That's what this bill does, but somehow it's a travesty. It's an abhorrent destruction of personal liberty in our Constitution. This legislation is a small, minor modification, extension of existing policies that have been on the books in this Commonwealth for decades. That's all it is. And just because it involves the Second Amendment does not mean that it gets better protection than the Fourth or the Fifth Amendment, your other rights there, but we're giving them to you anyway because we've heard the concerns. In terms of the search warrants, today, if somebody accuses a Virginian of either a domestic partner, husband, wife, child, roommate, boyfriend, girlfriend who live together, accuses them of either hitting them or threatening to hit them, a protective order is issued. That's the law today. Under that law, you have to give up your gun. You don't give it to the government, but you have to give it. You can't give it to the government. There's actually safekeeping programs, but you can give it to somebody else. However, if somebody walks down to the police department and says, you know what, my husband, who's now kicked out of the house, is still walking around with his gun in his apartment, his hotel room, his brother's house, his parents' house, wherever he went, you know what the government can do? It can go get a search warrant. It can go into their house to get that gun because they're breaking the law. And that's what this bill does. If a substantial risk order is entered and you're still not giving up your weapons, the government can get a search warrant, just like they can in any other criminal case, and they can go get the gun. We're not breaking any new ground. These are things that have occurred for probably decades under modern procedure, probably centuries if you look at things more broadly. And the last thing I'll say is that in terms of the danger that's created, you know, our law enforcement officers do a lot of dangerous things. That's part of their job, and we're all sensitive to that. Executing search warrants is always dangerous. whether you're going to a drug house, whether you're going in to recover fugitives who don't want to be taken in. We asked law enforcement to do that. Just a couple years ago in Prince William County, we had law enforcement that just simply went to a house to investigate a domestic violence situation, and 3 officers got shot. 3 officers got shot. 1 was killed on our very first day on the job. And that's in a domestic. I've heard some law enforcement officers say that they think just simply investigating domestic violence allegations is one of the most dangerous things they do. So we're not creating a whole lot of new scenarios, a whole lot of new situations here. What we are really doing is removing some of the risk of dozens of people being murdered en masse in advance. And a lot of us have looked at what's happened in this country with all the mass murders that occurred. And just in this Commonwealth, we've had Virginia Tech, and we had what happened in Virginia Beach, and we had the D.C. sniper running around sniping people, dozens of people over a multi-week period. If the government has reason to believe that somebody might go out and kill dozens of people, we believe the government ought to be able to go and get that gun to eliminate that possibility. This is not a big step. We'd encourage you to vote for the bill.
What purpose does the senator from Northern Fairfax, Senator Howe, rise?
Mr. President, I rise to ask the senior senator from Chesterfield if she'd respond to a question.
Will the senator yield for a question?
Yes, Mr. President, I yield.
Senator Yield, you have the floor.
In advance to all of my friends and colleagues on the floor, I apologize for interrupting the train of thought of most of us. But my question is, has the senator read the rules of the Senate?
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have received a copy of the rules of the Senate. I have not read them fully.
Further question?
Yes, Mr. President. I would refer her to item number 41 about speaking offense to members of the Senate. And I would like her to know that I am deeply offended that she has accused anyone on this floor of treason. Now, I will not put in a written at this point because she indicates she doesn't know the rules of the Senate. But should in the future such words be said again, I will indeed. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thanks, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President. May I respond?
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, myself and the constituents that I serve are deeply concerned that many in this body have violated the very oath of office that they swore to uphold, both the United States Constitution and the Virginia Constitution, and they believe that members of this body that vote on legislation that restricts their constitutionally protected rights are guilty of treason. That's the way they feel, and that's my exercising my First Amendment right to protect my Second Amendment right. Thank you, Mr. President.
What purpose does the senator from Franklin County, Senator Stanley, rise?
Thank you, Mr. President. Speak to the bill.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, you know my position on this, and I've been contemplating this as an attorney, and especially having the privilege to have practiced with some of the finest attorneys that I'm looking over at on the other side of the aisle. Grew up with in the halls of the courtrooms in Fairfax. Learned how to become a trial lawyer with many of them. Had the honor of sitting next to and co-counseling with one of the finest, fightingest lawyers that Richmond has ever seen.
Thank you.
Not you, Senator McDougal. And each time what we were doing was we were standing up against government, trying to deprive someone of their liberty who had been charged with a crime. You know, lawyers, we all, especially trial lawyers, criminal defense lawyers, we all are made fun of. There are lots of jokes, I know a few, about our profession. But I'm reminded of when William Shakespeare said in King Richard III, when Richard was going to take over the government and control the will of the people, the first thing he said is, the first thing we do is get rid of all the lawyers first. That's because lawyers stand between government and the people. I've known every single lawyer over there who I've practiced with since I was a lawyer my very first day, my very first year. Respected their respect of the law, their zeal in which they represent their clients, the victories that they got. And the victories they got, which was more for preservation of due process, preservation of those sacred rights, the 4th, 5th, 6th Amendment. Making sure that it always remained the burden of the government to prove guilt before any liberty interest was deprived. You know, when we fast forward today, you know, what I hear, not from necessarily my friends on the other side of the aisle here in this chamber, but I do hear a lot of distrust of the police from Democrats and liberals, and I mean even the top prosecutor in Baltimore has said some things that demonstrate a general distrust of the police and how they handle matters and how they treat their citizens. We've heard a congresswoman from New York who has some renown now to say that there were no police officers here at the Second Amendment rally because all the police officers secretly support gun owners. But if you have a rally for something that may be considered in the leftist agenda, boy, there's all those police out there harassing those people that just come to express their views. And so I wonder, because I think even our founding fathers told us to have a healthy distrust of government, that those on the other side of the aisle who have professed to have this distrust of the government, and especially the police, and exercising their authority, nevertheless, with this piece of legislation, want to give those police officers more power. More power, less in line with the Constitution, more opportunity for abuse. And I know of not one sheriff, chief of police in my district, nor have I seen any fraternal order of the police position come out. I've not seen anybody say, we want this, who's in law enforcement. We need this tool in the toolbox to do our job. Have not heard one thing. We're about to give them an authority that they do not want. And I was thinking last night, Mr. President, as I was pondering this, how serious a step Virginia was about to take. And I wondered to myself, what would have happened if this law had been put in place in the Commonwealth of Virginia during the 1950s and the 1960s? How would it have been used? How would it have been mistreated? What horrible things could have resulted from it? And so for that, I'm glad. And so if it was bad then, if you use it in comparison, how is it not bad now? It is bad. I represent people all across this Commonwealth who are charged with crimes. The potential for misuse of this exists, and it will exist in our minority communities. It will exist in those levels of poverty and below who don't have the ability to have an attorney, who may not be savvy enough to understand what's going on right now, who may not even know why they're at my door and what they're about to do in order to protect themselves. You know, I was thinking again last night, Mr. President, I had a case like this. A gentleman had gotten convicted of some nonviolent felonies, went to jail. He was my client. And so then when he got out of jail, his wife determined that she did not want to be married to him anymore. They had children. So with no place to live and being kicked out of the house, he went to his dad's house. Was living in the basement. Mr. President, she was able to then go and convince a police officer that he had surrounded himself, he was unstable, had surrounded himself with many weapons capable of mass destruction, and that he was a safety risk to himself and others. She had convinced him just on the story of herself. She'd even said he stole her car, which was his car, and was given back to him when he got out. And that police authority went and got a search warrant based on just that unsupported fact. They brought the SWAT in. They raided his dad's house. rousted him out of bed late at night, took him in. And you know what they found, Mr. President? They found an old antique gun and a bag of bullets that didn't even match the gun. And they charged him with being in possession of a firearm after being a convicted felon and possession of ammunition. They didn't find all the mass weapons of destruction that she had claimed. They didn't find anything. But when they found those two things, and by the way, they're in a locked drawer of which he did not have a key to, he was then arrested. Because he was on probation, he was then deprived of his liberty for months until a preliminary hearing, when that person was subject to my cross-examination. The prosecutor looked at me. I looked at him and he said, I'm not going to certify this upstairs. And he was finally free. But he had lost a liberty he didn't deserve to lose, nor had committed a crime that he was accused of, nor was he a threat to himself or others. He was happy to be out, Mr. President, happy to be free. But someone with an agenda, because it makes custody and child support a heck of a lot easier, makes divorce a heck of a lot easier, if he's stuck in prison. And you know what? If it was that easy to happen, then it's this easy to happen with this bill in the future. You know, we had a discussion that I enjoyed with Senator Deeds yesterday. The many questions. I don't get to talk to him that much in the hallway. I was really happy to have that conversation with my friend. But he brought up something about this is different than a TDO. But he reminded me last night, and my good friend, the senator from Spotsylvania, demonstrated and showed me this brilliant man right to my left who knows so much about the code, how it applies at the ground level, is that in the magistrate's handbook, Virginia Magistrate's Handbook, that which magistrates go by, said very simply the purpose of a temporary detention order is to get that person that needs help because it's a mental stability issue, harms himself, may harm others, can't take care of himself. The number one goal of a TDO, temporary detention or an emergency custody order, the ECOs we call them too, is to get them in front of a mental health professional immediately. Get them evaluated, get them help. This bill does none of that. This bill says, we're here for your firearm. And oh, by the way, we're not going to put you in front of a mental health professional like a TDO would. We're going to have you wait up to 2 weeks to go see a judge. I mean, we're fundamentally not addressing the issue you want to address, which then leaves all of us, you know, I trust you guys when we have honest and open discussions, but it makes me think that the object of this bill isn't that help which that person should get, but rather it's removing another gun and another gun and another gun. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't stand here just because I'm a true believer in the Bill of Rights of the Constitution, because you know I am. I stand here today as a professional where God gave me the opportunity to be a trial lawyer for the last 25 years, where I could make a difference in the world by changing the lives of the people I represent. And that's what I've carried forward. Also understanding that we must preserve and protect their rights to freedom and against the government intrusion. I can't believe we're doing this. And it's really not about the Second Amendment when I make this argument to you today. It's about freedom and liberty and justice as it was intended to be. By not giving those that maybe some in your side of the aisle distrust more power that they don't even want. Today, when you vote, if it passes, we have made a mistake that hopefully we'll be able to recover from. But I fear we will not. And I thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. For what purpose does the senator from Western Fairfax, Senator Marsden, rise?
Speak briefly to the bill.
Senator has the floor.
The way I've always thought this worked is that we make laws, They're reviewed by judges to determine their constitutionality. And I believe in many cases, bills very similar to this have been ruled constitutional. That's the way it works. And I wish we could have a situation where we could guarantee that everybody who was a danger was mentally ill. I was a probation officer, detention home superintendent. There were a lot of kids I thought were really, really dangerous. Never even occurred to me that I could pursue a TDO for mental illness. They were just dangerous because they were angry or had some other kind of characterological problem, but certainly not committable. And so this is the system we have. We pass the laws. The courts rule on their constitutionality. I believe that has taken place around the country. That's the best guideline we have in this situation. And I wish everybody was who would come before someone putting this bill into practice was mentally ill so we could get them immediate help, but some of them aren't, and you can't make that case. So this is the best we can do. It is not perfect. Nothing is perfect in our system. We've executed people who were innocent. We have done things that we regret, but at this point in time, we need to move forward, and we need to provide this kind of security for the people of the Commonwealth of Virginia. Thank you.
For what purpose does the senator from Alexandria, Senator Eben, rise?
Yes, Mr. President. Very briefly to speak to the bill.
Senator has the floor.
And before I do, I just wanted to read out loud, before the senator from Northern Fairfax County cited Rule 41, I just wanted to make sure everyone's aware of Rule 42, which reads in part, the senator speaking, without advancing, with due respect, addresses Mr. President, confining himself strictly to the point in debate and avoiding all disrespectful language. Hope we can all abide by that. Now, the senator from Rockingham suggested that we need further study to know that these extreme risk protection laws work. And I wanted to briefly cite a few of the studies that show that they do work and a few examples of how they've avoided catastrophe. Following Connecticut's increased enforcement of its extreme risk law, one study found it to be associated with a 14% reduction in the firearm suicide rate, I should say. And while it's always hard to measure results that didn't happen, an important study in Connecticut found that one suicide was averted approximately for every 11 gun removals carried out under law. In Indiana, in the 10 years after the state passed an ERPO law, the state's firearm suicide rate decreased by 7.5%. Perpetuators of mass shootings and school shootings often display warning signs before committing violent acts. And I'll mention among the studies is one by the U.S. Secret Service and the Department of Education that showed that targeted school violence incidents found behavioral warning signs that caused others to be concerned in 93% of the cases. And I'll give just two examples before I close. Students and teachers reported the mass shooter in the February 2018 shooting in Parkland, Florida. And his mother contacted law enforcement on multiple occasions regarding his behavior, and he was known to possess firearms. In response to that tragedy, of course, Florida passed its own extreme risk law. Likewise, the shooter in 2014 in Isla Vista, California, showed numerous warning signs, including homicidal and suicidal threats. His parents had alerted law enforcement, but he did not meet the criteria for emergency mental health commitment. And I'll repeat that. He did not meet the criteria for emergency mental health commitment. As a result, he kept his guns, which he used in the killing spree, 3 weeks later. In response to that tragedy, California passed its own extreme risk law. These laws are not going to capture every incidence, every threat of violence, but they're going to capture some. They're going to allow those situations where parents, neighbors, students, others, teachers can act upon what they know, what they feel is likely to be a catastrophe in the making, and for people who have a good basis to make judgments as to whether or not to try and avert those catastrophes. And I would just ask that we pass the bill.
For what purpose does the senator from Russell, Senator Chafin, rise?
to speak to the bill.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, as the senator from Franklin indicated, the committee heard no testimony favorable to this bill from law enforcement. And I have to presume, since the committee heard no testimony favorable to the bill, it's because law enforcement doesn't favor this type of bill. What we have here is a civil process whereby a law-abiding individual, woman or man, no criminal history, no prior involvement with law enforcement, no problems perhaps no problems in their life, that allegations, mere civil allegations, can be made against, and law enforcement who don't like this are then required to go to that individual's home and ask for their property. Now, people covet property. I don't know why people covet different types of property. They covet it for different reasons. Some people covet diamonds. Some people covet money. Some people covet animals. Some people covet, and yes, people do appreciate their firearms, and they covet them in some instances because they represent the very freedom and liberty that people in this nation have shed blood for time and time again on foreign soils. So they're asked to take those guns, and if law enforcement is not satisfied, and if a further allegation is made, law enforcement is going to be required to go back to that home. And this time, they're not going to take no for an answer. This time, they're coming to get that property. So, Mr. President, what I fear is in this bill is that there are some things that are more important than coveting or than guns or than property. And it's the sanctity of human life. And I know that the patron is trying to get at the protection of the sanctity of human life. But I believe that there are people, there are individuals out here who, under the circumstances that may arise, the visit that may come in the middle of the night, I believe that there are people out here who covet the freedoms in their home that they have. They covet their castle. They love their castle. They covet what they believe is their right to liberty and to happiness and to life. And I believe they will not suffer. I fear that they will not suffer the consequences of someone ramming their door down when they are not accused of violating a law, when they are not accused of having committed a crime, and when they have harmed no one. And that's what we're asking law enforcement to do. So if you will, we're asking law enforcement to, by way of example, everybody knows what this one is. Go right up Ruby Ridge Lane, go right up to that door in the cover of darkness, banging on that door or knocking that door down and finding out what's behind it. They want to know what's behind it, and we're asking and putting our law enforcement in that position that they have to go and find out what is behind someone's door. The door to their castle, the door to their home. That's what this bill does. And I fear, Mr. President, that individual may hunker down, that individual may not be a graduate of a law school, that individual may not understand their rights, that they may not understand due process, that they may not be willing to lay it all out that way, that they are going to want to lay it on the line right there. That's what I fear, is that the bloodshed that will occur as a result of this bill will be of those individuals who have done nothing wrong, but be in their home, and not wish to give up their property. Mr. President, a person who loses their life loses everything they have, everything they ever had, and everything they ever will have. They lose it. That person loses everything they have. And I believe, Mr. President, that law enforcement deserves better than this. I believe, Mr. President, that we deserve better than this. And Mr. President, I believe the Commonwealth deserves better than this. I would ask the members of this body to consider this and please vote no. Please vote no. Don't turn the Commonwealth as we know it on its head. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank the senator. Do any other senators, other than the patron of the bill, wish to be heard on Senate Bill 240? Seeing none, the senator from Southern Fairfax, Senator Barker.
Mr. President, just to wrap up here and to address a couple of issues and things, I think that we are heading in a positive direction with this legislation, which will protect lives and reduce deaths within Virginia. I can tell you that on Monday I had a number of people advocating for gun rights that came to my office. I met with every one of them that came to my office. I found them very civil. I found them very engaging, and we had good conversations on things. And actually, a couple of them even made suggestions as to how to improve some of the things that are being considered here. So they were being constructive rather than just being in opposition to things. I think that was a positive thing and something that we can continue to build upon. One of the issues that's been raised is law enforcement officers. I will tell you that we have statements from a number of law enforcement officers in states that have implemented this, something similar in terms of this legislation, who are very supportive of it. They may not have been supportive prior to it being in place, but now find it a very useful tool and talk about the number of lives that they have saved, and particularly in many instances, the numbers of suicides they have saved and the thanks that they've gotten from families as well as the individuals who are contemplating suicide. But also say that one of the first states to enact such legislation was Indiana. Indiana enacted this type of legislation, and it's been supported by Vice President Pence and many others in Indiana since then, was as a result of someone who had talked to the police in Indianapolis, the capital and the largest city in Indiana, and who said basically that I'm going to kill a police officer. The police went to the officials in their department and to some of the legal people within the city and said, what can we do about this to be able to prevent this person from being able to do it? And the answer they got was there's nothing you can do because he's not committed a crime yet. That person did shoot in cold blood a police officer in Indianapolis, killing him. And it's actually, in that case, it clearly was something that had that legislation been in place prior to rather than shortly after the killing of that officer, almost certainly that officer's life would have been saved. I think there are a lot of reasons for having this tool in place to improve safety for the residents and the people of Virginia. I thank many of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle for addressing issues and working on this in constructive ways. And I can tell you that this is a process. And I think we in the Senate and in the General Assembly do ourselves well when we are working and raising issues and challenging things that people believe and help to get to the best solution. And I think that the legislation that we have now is a clear improvement from many perspectives over what was introduced in this particular situation. And I will say to my friend from Spotsylvania who raised some of these questions that this is a process. I'm going to continue to listen to anybody who has concerns about this, and we may make further changes throughout the process. Thank you, and I hope it be the pleasure of the body to adopt this.
Thank you, Senator. Question is, shall Senate Bill 240 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk, close the roll.
Ayes 21, noes 19.
Ayes 21, noes 19. Senate Bill 240 passes.
Senate Bill 391, a bill relating to adult abuse, financial exploitation, required report by financial institution.
Mr. President, I ask that that bill go by for the day.
Without objection, Senate Bill 391 will go by for the day, and the Senate will stand in a brief recess. Senate will come to order. The senators will please take their seats. Those persons not entitled to the privilege of the floor will please retire to the gallery. Senator from Fairfax City, Senator Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd ask if we could return to the morning hour.
Without objection, we'll return to the morning hour.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, I have a number of friends that have come to visit me from the Korean American community in Northern Virginia and all over the state, and they're here in the gallery, and they're leaders and friends of mine, and if I would like to introduce them, starting with Ms. So-Jung Lim, who's a Fairfax City Council member and businesswoman in Fairfax, Mr. Wu-Tae Chang, Hae-Kyung Kang, James Daniel Shin, Young Ha Kim, Sehe Chang, Taylor Lee, Mi-Sun Chang, and Hyudae Choi. And they represent the following groups: the Korean American Women's Chamber of Commerce, the Korean Senior Association, the U.S. Korean Association of Washington, the Petersburg Korean American Association, and the Peninsula Korean American Association. And I would just say, kamsahamnida, chukabnida, jarhesa. Thank you.
I thank the senator. Would our distinguished guests from the Korean American community please rise in the gallery if you are able? Thank you all so much for joining us here today. It is always wonderful to see you in the Capitol, and we appreciate the eloquent words of Senator from Fairfax City, Senator Peterson. Thank you for your leadership, Councilwoman, and to each one of you, we are so grateful to you. You are welcome back here anytime, and I would ask everyone to please join me in extending the warmest welcome of the Senate to our distinguished guests. The junior senator from Richmond City, Senator Morrissey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. President. Mr. President, I rise for a point of personal privilege and an inquiry.
We'll do personal privilege at the end, but did you have an inquiry?
I do.
What senator has the floor?
With regard to the inquiry, Mr. President, I was looking at the rules while we were during that last long debate, and I saw Rule 40A that prohibited props on the floor, and I wanted to ask Madam Clerk if that requirement has been eliminated, because I thought I saw a red balloon going back and forth. And as many of the folks know from the House that came over to the Senate, I've got a whole room full of props that I can use. And so I want to know if I can bring my props onto the floor of the Senate, Madam Clerk.
No, sir. I think I answered that question the very first time you walked in the door.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Without objection, we will return to the calendar.
And you're in trouble.
You're referring to Senator from Franklin County?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I want to be clear.
Senate Bill 437, a bill relating to bicyclists and other vulnerable road users penalty.
Senator from Eastern Fairfax, Senator Surville.
Mr. President, I move the bill pass, and speaking to that motion.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the, I think, third time we have seen this bill in this chamber. It's passed twice before. Brought it back again, given the changes on the other side. I think it's got a better shot this year. But the bill has two sort of thrusts. Number one, at the very bottom, it makes it clear that you cannot use a bicycle lane to pass another vehicle. Senator Vogel had another bill that was very similar to that. Her bill got rolled into mine. That's why she's a co-sponsor of this. There's some jurisdictions that think that the current statute is ambiguous, and this just makes it clear you can't drive your car into a bike lane to pass another car. It's supposed to be for bikes. And we're getting more and more bike lanes around the Commonwealth. We need to have clarity. The second part of the bill, which is up at the top, has to do with vulnerable road users. And what that means is the bill is basically designed to enhance remedies for people who seriously injure cyclists or pedestrians. A vulnerable road user is defined in the bill as somebody that's driving basically anything but a car, or somebody who's walking, who's a pedestrian in a situation. And if a driver seriously injures someone, as a result of being careless or distracted, they would fall into this statute, which would be a Class 1 misdemeanor. Serious injury is defined in the malicious wounding statute, which if anybody wants to know, means you have to be disfigured, fractured, severe burn or laceration, mutilation, maiming, or life-threatening internal injury. So it has to be a pretty serious injury to fall into this statute. So just a regular like road rash or a bump or a bruise wouldn't count, but it has to be sort of a more serious injury. And again, it lowers the standard from the reckless driving standard to careless or distracted. And the reason for that is that a lot of times in bike and pedestrian cases, or actually often, the cyclist or the pedestrian can't remember anything either because they're dead or because they were concussed, given the physics of the collision and given that the forensics that are left over are frequently pretty ambiguous because bodies and bikes don't really leave a lot of marks on cars. It's often very difficult to put back together what happened. And so 17, 18, 19 other states have passed these laws to make it easier to convict someone of injuring a cyclist or pedestrian with enhanced remedies. Cyclist pedestrian deaths are way up. Accidents are up. People are walking more, they're biking more, and more people are distracted because of phones, which we're going to talk about later this session. But I would hope the body would pass the bill as it's done now twice previously, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank the Senator. For what purpose is Senator from Hampton? Senator Locke rise.
Thank you, Mr. President. I guess I fall under the category of other vulnerable road user. So I rise in support of the legislation.
We're happy to have you here. Do any other senators wish to be heard on Senate Bill 437? Seeing none, the question is, shall Senate Bill 437 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 25, noes 15.
Ayes 25, noes 15. Senate Bill 437 passes.
Uncontested calendar, Senate bills on second reading.
Senior Senator from Fairfax, Senator Saslaw.
Mr. President, I move that all Senate bills on second reading on the uncontested calendar, that's pages 6 through 8, Senate Bill 774 through 977, be advanced to their engrossment and third reading in a block after the adoptions of any amendment thereto. Any senator desiring to remove a bill from the block, please do so after the clerk has read the number of the bill.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall all Senate bills on second reading on the uncontested calendar on pages 6 through 8, Senate Bill 774 through Senate Bill 977, be engrossed in advance to their third reading in the block after the adoption of any amendments thereto, and that any senator desiring a bill be removed from the block will do so after the clerk has read the number of the bill. All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. The clerk will read the number of the bills.
Senate Bill 774, reported for the Committee on Agriculture, Conservation, and Natural Resources with an amendment, and there is a floor substitute.
Senator from Russell, Senator Chafin.
Mr. President, may that come out of the block.
Without objection, Senate Bill 774 will be removed from the block.
Senate Bill 415, reported from the Committee on the Judiciary with an amendment.
Senator from Bath, Senator Deeds.
Mr. President, I move that the committee amendment be agreed to.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the committee amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee amendment is agreed to.
Senate Bill 499, reported from the Committee on the Judiciary. Senate Bill 726, reported from the Committee on Local Government. Senate Bill 929, reported from the Committee on the Judiciary. Senate Bill 941, reported from the Committee on Local Government. Senate Bill 977, reported from the Committee on Local Government.
Question is, shall the Senate bills be engrossed in advance to their third reading? That is all bills except for Senate Bill 774. All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bills are engrossed in advance to their third reading.
Returning to 774.
Senator from Russell, Senator Chafin.
Mr. President, with the recommendation that we reject the committee amendments, I move that they be adopted.
Thank the Senator. The question is, with the recommendation that it be rejected, shall the committee amendment be adopted? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no.
No.
The noes have it. The amendment is rejected. Senator from Russell, Senator Chafin.
Mr. President, I move that we waive the reading of the floor amendment.
Question is, shall the reading of the floor amendment be waived? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The reading of the floor amendment is waived. Senator from Russell, Senator Chafin.
Mr. President, I move adoption of the floor substitute. And speaking to that,
Senator, it's the floor.
So this bill is pretty simple, and the amendment, the substitute is too. Basically, it just sets forth that there will not be the unsporting event of a guaranteed kill of a deer, bear, or turkey. They can't be sold, they can't be offered, and they can't be purchased in the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Thank the Senator. Do any other senators wish to be heard with regard to the floor substitute? Seeing none, the question is, shall the floor substitute be adopted? All in favor of the motion will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The floor substitute is adopted.
Mr. President,
From Russell, Senator Chafin.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. I move that the bill be engrossed and passed to its third reading.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the bill be engrossed and advanced to its third reading? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill is engrossed and advanced to its third reading.
Regular calendar Senate bills on second reading. Senate Bill 314, a bill relating to an act to grandfather certain non-conforming use. Reported from the Committee on Local Government.
Senator from Franklin County, Senator Stanley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I now move that Senate Bill 314 be engrossed and advanced to its third constitutional reading, please.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall Senate Bill 314 be engrossed and advanced to its third reading? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill is engrossed and advanced to its third reading.
Senate Bill 329, a bill relating to fees for disposal of solid waste, Russell County. Reported from the Committee on Local Government with amendments.
Senator from Russell, Senator Chafin.
Mr. President, I move that we adopt the committee amendments.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the committee amendments be adopted? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee amendments are adopted. Senator from Russell, Senator Chafin.
I now move that we engross the bill and advance it to its third constitutional reading.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the bill be engrossed and advanced to its third reading? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill is engrossed and advanced to its third reading.
Senate Bill 349, a bill relating to insurance for certain retired employees of political subdivisions. Reported from the Committee on Local Government with amendment.
Senator from Portsmouth, Senator Lucas.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the committee amendment be approved.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the committee amendment be adopted? All in favor of the motion will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee amendment is adopted. Senator from Portsmouth, Senator Lucas.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the bill be engrossed and advanced to its third constitutionally required reading.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the bill be engrossed and advanced to its third reading? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill is engrossed and advanced to its third reading.
Senate Bill 360, a bill relating to installation of certain facilities by developer reimbursement. Reported from the Committee on Local Government with a substitute.
Senior Senator from Chesapeake, Senator Cosgrove.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the adoption of the committee substitute.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the committee substitute be adopted? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee substitute is adopted. The Senior Senator from Chesapeake, Senator Cosgrove.
Thank you, Mr. President. Now I ask the body to engross the bill and pass it on to its regular old third reading.
Thank the Senator. Question is, shall the bill be engrossed and advanced to its third reading? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill is engrossed and advanced to its third reading.
Senate Bill 631, a bill relating to abandoned and stolen shopping carts, local regulation. Reported from the Committee on Local Government with amendments.
Senator from Eastern Fairfax, Senator Surville.
Mr. President, I move the committee amendments one last time, hopefully.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the committee amendments be adopted? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee amendments are adopted. Senator from Eastern Fairfax, Senator Surville.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill be engrossed and advanced to its third reading for hopefully the last time.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the bill be engrossed and advanced to its third reading? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill is engrossed and advanced to its third reading.
Senate Bill 746, a bill relating to comprehensive plan, reported for the Committee on Local Government with amendments, and there are 2 floor amendments.
Senator from Loudoun, Senator Bell.
Mr. President, I move the committee amendments.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the committee amendments be adopted? All in favor of the motion will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee amendments are adopted. Senator from Loudoun, Senator Bell.
Mr. President, I move to waive reading of the floor amendments.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the reading of the floor amendment be waived? All in favor of the motion will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The reading of the floor amendment is waived. Senator from Loudoun, Senator Bell.
Mr. President, I move the adoption of floor amendment.
Thank you, Senator. You want to speak to it?
This is a simple change that was actually just an error that was not included when it was in committee. This bill actually just changes the comprehensive plan from 90 days to 150 days, and also for if it affects more than 25 parcels. My locality in Loudoun County has been one of the highest growth areas in the country and in the Commonwealth for the last few years. Comprehensive plans have been very difficult, and the 90-day turnaround has frankly added to more errors. So what we're trying to do is just give them the ability, when there are a number of parcels being changed, that it would they could do it correctly and not rush and do what could be a mistaken job.
Thank the Senator. Question is, shall the floor amendments be adopted? All in favor of the motion will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The floor amendments are adopted. Senator from Loudoun, Senator Bell.
Mr. President, I move that the bill be engrossed and pass on its third reading.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the bill be engrossed and advanced to its third reading? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill is engrossed and advanced to its third reading.
Senate Bill 826, a bill relating to water and sewer service charges, tenant or lessee.
Senator from Hanover,
reported from the Committee on Local Government with amendment.
Senator from Hanover, Senator McDougal.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move the committee amendment be agreed to.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the committee amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee amendment is agreed to. Senator from Hanover, Senator McDougal.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move that the bill be engrossed and advanced to its third constitutional reading.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the bill be engrossed and advanced to its third reading? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill is engrossed and advanced to its third reading.
Uncontested calendar, Senate bills on first reading.
Senior Senator from Fairfax, Senator Saslaw.
Mr. President, I move that all Senate bills on first reading on the uncontested and regular calendars, pages 12 through 21, that Senate Bill 93 through 861, that the rules be suspended and the first constitutional reading be dispensed with.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the rules be suspended and the first reading of the titles of Senate bills on the uncontested and regular calendars, pages 12 through 21, Senate Bill 93 through Senate Bill 861 be dispensed with? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. The reading of the titles is dispensed with. Senior Senator from Fairfax, Senator Saslaw.
Yeah, Mr. President, I would now move that all said bills, I think except for Senate Bill 93, go by for the day, and I would yield at this time to the senior senator from Virginia Beach.
We're going to take the motion up really quickly. The question is, shall the Senate bills on the uncontested and regular calendars now on second reading go by for the day, with the exception of Senate Bill 93? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Those bills will go by for the day.
Senate Bill 93, a bill relating to taxes on income, wills, and administrations, exemptions for victims of the Virginia Beach mass shooting, and for payments to such victims. Reported from the Committee on Finance and Appropriations with a substitute.
Senior Senator from Virginia Beach, Senator DeStaff.
Mr. President, I move the substitute.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The The ayes have it. The substitute is agreed to. Senior Senator from Virginia Beach, Senator DeStaff.
Mr. President, I move the engrossment and advancement to the third constitutional reading.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the bill be engrossed and advanced to its third reading? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill is engrossed and advanced to its third reading. Senior Senator from Virginia Beach, Senator DeStaff.
Mr. President, I'd like to suspend the rules and dispense with the third constitutional reading.
Question is, shall the rules be suspended and the third constitutional reading be dispensed with? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk, close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. The rules are suspended and the third constitutional reading is dispensed with. Senior Senator from Virginia Beach, Senator DeStaff.
Mr. President, I move the passage of Senate Bill 93 and speaking to that.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, Senate Bill 93, basically what it does is it exempts from taxation any of the monies donated into the tragedy fund that went to the United Way for the Virginia Beach tragedy, and then money coming out of that, it eliminates it from taxes as well. And two other points to that. For any of the funds, and the reason that this has an emergency clause is any of the funds that were distributed to the employees or those who lost family members in the tragedy, it exempts that from taxes. And then for anyone who's donated money into the fund, if they don't file federal taxes and they file state taxes, it still gives them the tax deductibility of those funds they've donated in. And then finally, Mr. President, what this does is it exempts those individuals from the Virginia Beach mass shooting and their families from probate tax, which is $1 per thousand. So with that, I move passage of Senate Bill 93.
Thank the Senator. Do any other senators wish to be heard regarding Senate Bill 93? Seeing none, the question is, shall Senate Bill 93 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. Senate Bill 93 passes. Senior Senator from Fairfax, Senator Sasslaw.
Mr. President, I inquire of the clerk, does that complete the calendar?
Yes, sir.
Oh, that's too bad. I was hoping we could stay for another hour or two.
Only if you bring a prop.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
I got some balloons. I can.
For what purpose does the senator from Augusta, Senator Hanger, rise?
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for purposes of a brief announcement.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the Senate. Just want to announce tomorrow morning we have a sportsman caucus that meets every Thursday morning at 7 a.m. on the second floor. And typically we have coffee and donuts if you're around 7 a.m. on Thursday morning. So that will be at 7 a.m. and we'll have a good program. I'm also involved with another caucus, the Outdoor Recreation Caucus. And that one only meets a couple times during session, but it will be holding a meeting tomorrow morning in room, I think it's B200 on the second floor, and that is at 8 a.m. So we have lots of fun with that caucus. We're planning, since it will be hopefully a non-election year for most of us, that we'll have some activities later this year that we're going to plan as far as getting out to different parts of the state and having some good fun and fellowship. But that's the Sportsman Caucus at 7. We still need members. And the Outdoor Recreation Caucus at 8 tomorrow morning. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank the Senator. For what purpose does the Senator from Prince William County, Senator McPike, rise?
Mr. President, I rise for the purpose of announcement.
Senator has the floor.
The General Laws Subcommittee on Gaming will be meeting tomorrow afternoon after transportation. And in preparation for the subcommittee meeting next week regarding casinos, I ask that members who have substitutes that are substantial to please have those in by Monday. So close of business Monday, in due consideration of the subcommittee's members and effort to understand what you're trying to do. It would be greatly appreciated. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank the Senator. For what purpose does the senior senator from Fairfax, Senator Sasslaw, rise?
Mr. President, just was listening to the Senator Hanger. The sleeping caucus will meet here at noon tomorrow.
Thank the Senator. For what purpose does Senator from Russell, Senator Chafin, rise?
Mr. President, I rise for an announcement.
Senator has the floor.
So this evening, Wednesday this evening, at 6 p.m. at the Library of Virginia, the Southwest Virginia Legislative Reception will be held, and all members are invited. You'll be treated to some really good brisket and chicken and pork and shrimp and barbecue and other and sundry foods, and all kinds of libations. And you'll also be tempted to dance when you hear the 80s themed bluegrass music from Love Cannon. So I welcome each and every one of you and look forward to seeing you there.
Thank the Senator. Do any other senators wish to be heard? Seeing none, the clerk will report any announcements on the desk.
Today, Wednesday, January 22nd, the Committee on General Laws and Technology will meet 1/2 hour after adjournment, Senate Room 3, Capitol. The Committee on the Judiciary will meet 1/2 hour after adjournment, Senate Room A, Pocahontas. The Finance and Appropriations Subcommittee on Transportation will meet at 4 p.m., Senate Subcommittee Room 1 on the 5th floor, Pocahontas. Senators Barker, Sasslaw, Hanger, Newman, Deeds, Marsden, and McClellan. The Rural Caucus will meet at 5 p.m. in Senate Subcommittee Room 2, 5th floor, Pocahontas. The Virginia Legislative Black Caucus will meet at 5 p.m., House Subcommittee Room 300B, which is on the 3rd floor, Pocahontas. Tomorrow, Thursday, January 23rd, the Hampton Roads Caucus will meet at 7:30 a.m., Senate Subcommittee Room 1, 5th floor, Pocahontas. The Committee on Education and Health will meet at 8 a.m., Senate Room A, Pocahontas. The Agriculture, Conservation, and Natural Resources Subcommittee on Companion Animals will meet at 9 a.m., Senate Subcommittee Room 1, 5th floor, Pocahontas. Senators Marsden, Favola, and Pillion. The Democratic Caucus will meet at 11:30 a.m., Senate Room 1. The Republican Caucus will meet at 11:30 a.m., Senate Room 2.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. For what purpose does the Senator from Southern Fairfax, Senator Barker, rise?
Mr. President, given the hour that we're at, General Laws and Technology will start about 15 minutes after adjournment rather than 30 minutes after adjournment. So, thanks.
Thanks, Senator. Is there any other business to come before the Senate? Seeing none, I call on the Senator from Portsmouth, Senator Lucas.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate do now adjourn until 12 noon tomorrow.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the Senate stand adjourned until 12 noon tomorrow? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Senate stands adjourned until 12 noon tomorrow.